One of the most inspirational ways to think about motivation comes to me from the Buddhist teachings. The idea of bodhicitta, awakening to benefit self and other, to reach Buddhahood, to awaken self and other. Now, this benefit that's being talked about in all of Buddhist scriptures is this benefit of reaching Buddhahood for self and the entirety of the sentient beings, because that's the highest benefit. Because one then goes beyond samsara, beyond this world of suffering, because according to the teachings, and many other traditions also believe that the samsara is a lot of suffering and pain. So one reaches Buddhahood, which is beyond all this, and one is aspiring for even others to reach the same goal. Now, if we bring this idea to day mundane activities, which is important for us worldlings, to think of this thought in three stages. And to share with you, this is not something that is original to me, it comes from the Buddhist teachings. The first stage is to think of this thought, however weak or strong it might be. So when there's a lot of motivational talk, motivational conversations, speeches going on, there's always this notion of having the strong motivation, the strongest motivation, which is very, which is unmoving and unperturbed and having a very solid foundation, so on and so forth. But I am like a sidebar proposing that any thought, any motivational, any inspirational thought that arises in the mind, heart, whatever space you want to label it as, the moment it arises is very important. Strong or weak doesn't really matter. Now, in the second stage, there is the stabilization of this thought, this inspiration, this motivation. And we need this motivation, this inspiration to think and act. Now, to act comes very obvious, but really, when we think of, if you think of these thought processes, when you really want to put yourself to a certain thought, to process thought in a certain contemplative manner towards a certain end, then also we need strong motivation if we do not want to really unfocus from what we're doing. So, in so doing, one is stabilizing it. But at the same time, there are tools. Again, I'm bringing the same wisdom from the same sources. And one of the most important tools, and I'm going to just talk about one tool today, is to find joy in the heart, to rejoice in positive, good action of self and others. So, how does this happen? We see people donating blood, offering food to dogs or birds or whatever we see. People doing these beautiful things, us engaging in something nice, and we rejoice. We constantly rejoice in these activities. What will it do is it'll bring warmth. It's like a cycle. This motivation, this doing, this motivation, this action, and there is the resultant feedback. And this feedback is joy. There's warmth, and the heart opens up. Now, this is the proof that this is the right tool to motivate ourselves to do something, is that when we are open, when we are warm, when we're experiencing joy again and again, there is this resource, a very rich resource, where we are strong. Now, it sounds a little bit here and there, not really connected, but when we think of it, if we are open, we're also open to failures. And that's the kind of strength that I'm talking about. Now, it's sort of simplistic and easy to think of motivation as just telling ourselves to go get it, asking others to do the same, us trying to motivate others, other people trying to motivate us, and saying, hey, you have it all, you can do it, so on and so forth. You're like, go for it, so forth, so on and so forth. But the most important thing is if we are deep inside averse to failure. Now, I think that's the most important barrier, because deep inside there is this defeat that's happening. We've conceded within, and no matter how geared up we look, it's not happening. And in terms of how joyous the journey itself can be, we have a motivation, then it stabilizes by this means of one of the ways is by experiencing joy, rejoicing in that joy, and having this warm heart and open mind is certainly something that will stabilize the mind, it'll strengthen the mind, strengthen the heart and mind. When we think of motivation in this manner, there is a certainty that whether or not we reach our goals or objectives, which is again based upon so many variables, so many the worldly ways that can function in a way that may not give us the right kind of results, so on and so forth. But whatever it is, whatever may manifest as a result state, the thought, this thought that I am motivated and I'm experiencing joy by actions of self and others, which is helping me sustain the state of stabilization, will eventually reach a stage, which is the third stage, where the actions of the thought will start proliferating. And if it's the most natural, if it's the most spontaneous, then it'll happen on its own. One doesn't really even need to go back and re-motivate and so on and so forth, because the original motivation has been strengthened and stabilized in the second stage by things like experiencing joy. And in the final stage, there is this thought or this action that self proliferates and touches other people, other beings. Thank you so much.